Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another positive talk. Super excited about today's live. I've been talking to this guest for quite a while to get him on. Uh, his story is super inspiring, and hopefully, you all will be able to connect with him in an amazing way. I think when it comes to any story of people who have gone through life in any type of minority group, it's so important for those stories to be shared. And I've recently had read his book and connected with him, and I wanted to bring him on here so that he could connect with you all and share a little bit of his story in hopes that you all pick up his book and be inspired to read it. So let's see if we can pull him on. Got my shirt on, I'm ready. Let's see. Like I said before, if you have questions, feel free to leave them in the comments and we'll try to get to them. Hello.
Hello, hello. Look at that.
How
First
are
time
you?
connect. Good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I've heard that you're very busy today, so we'll dive right into the conversation. But I want to
Okay.
let you introduce yourself first so people know who you are, and then we can just dive in.
Awesome. I'm RK Russell, former NFL player, writer, author, producer, public speaker, advocate, all the things. But today, just someone here, hopefully, to share a message of light, love, inclusion, and happiness. And appreciate you having me here.
I love it. And thank you so much for allowing your story to be publicly heard because there are so many people out there who want to keep a lot of their life private. And like right in the beginning of the book, you kind of talked about how that was a shift because you had a very public life being a football player, but there was also like that part of your life that was private. So diving right in, tell us a little bit about that. Like what made you decide that it was important for you to share that story and how has it kind of managed to manifest the life that you have now?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, of course. I mean, growing up, just especially growing up in Texas, like for anyone who knows anything about Texas, I just say I define Texas by like the three F's, which is faith, family, and football. So immediately I was like thrusted into this sports culture. Sports, by definition, male sports, it's supposed to be this place where it's like you come and you're supposed to like find this brotherhood and like this mentorship and really like this great source of camaraderie. And I found all those things. But what is not kind of told to you and what people put into sports and what people enforce into sports is also like the exclusion. Like you're kind of told what being a boy is supposed to be like and what being a man is supposed to be like and the type of people who are supposed to be welcome to sports and the type of people that aren't. So that was also all enforced on me as well. Fast forward to kind of like the book in this moment, in 2019, I became the first NFL player to openly identify as bisexual. That was like this huge moment in my personal life, which then became this huge moment just like in sports culture in general. And yeah, up until that moment, like it was a huge battle for me, choosing to be choosing to accept who I am first and foremost, and then choosing to be public with who I am. It's a process to find out that like there is a part of me still to this day that like loves my privacy. Like I am a private person, but there's a
Yeah.
difference between being a private person and being a secretive person. When you are keeping a secret, especially a secret that so many people have shrouded in shame, that society views in a certain way, in a certain light, that sports views in a certain way, in a certain light. When being bisexual or being LGBTQ plus or being someone of a different gender, or being a woman, or someone of a different religion, or all of these other things, these other beautiful groups and in diverse groups that are looked at by society and by other people as being subhuman or being less than, when we allow that shame, that societal judgment to make us hold ourselves in secrecy, that's where the unhealthy balance becomes. So, for me, it's about like deconstructing those toxic things that I was taught through society, through sport, um, pushing those to the side and being able to step into my own truth, into my own power, into my own self love, and be like, hey, this is who I am. This is who I've always been. And I want to do this. And I want to play sports. And I want to be connected to sports. And I want to love sports. And I want little Black bisexual boys and all people who love sports to feel like, hey, this is a space where I can be and I can be me and I can exist and I can just play the game and love it.
Yeah. And I think that that's why so many people need to be able to connect to stories. And something that I think is really beautiful about the book that you wrote was you didn't just focus around being part of the LGBT community. It was very much a story that could open a lot of different people's eyes from different perspectives. Because one thing I've always been confused of is how people of different minority groups could be prejudiced against other people in minority groups because we know what it's like to be
Hmm.
oppressed or treated as other, but you see it in every single group. It's like if you are other, it's really easy for other people to put you in that category and kind of dehumanize you. But like within your book, you share your journey from childhood up until this point. And I think that just as important as it is for people that are like straight men to read this book, it's also important for LGBT people who may not belong to another minority group other than that to read it and understand the complexities of growing up and navigating all of those waters because it's hard when your identity is on the line and there are just less and less people who align with who you are and how you identify. I think it's important for us to use these times where there's someone who can tell us both sides of a story and say, this was my experience, because it is different than other people. But at the same time, we want to have that open mindedness to say all of our stories are complex and unique, but it's important to not invalidate people's experiences just because we can find someone who didn't live that experience. And your book does such a beautiful way of articulating all those different things. And I think that even for me going through it, I was just like, wow, I I, I started my platforms very much, my content was centered around my story. And through that, I realized that I wanted to help the LGBT community as a whole because of the struggles. But even when I started to kind of get into the spotlight and be known by others, I realized that there was a huge disservice I was doing by thinking that my personal experience reflected in every LGBT person's life, because mine is a very privileged journey. Yes, there were traumas and struggles I had to overcome, but I think it's really important for people to understand all these different angles we can see these stories from. And you do such an amazing job with your book.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that like intersectionality is such a beautiful thing. Like I am so fortunate to be both bisexual and a part of the LGBTQ plus community and to be black and to be a part of sports. Like I love that complex intersectionality because to me it shows that all of these multifaceted communities and multifaceted identities like can coexist. There's like this thought that like you can't be black and be queer and be a sports person. I'm like, you can. I exist. I literally walk on this earth among you
Yeah.
every day. And like I love that there are people that literally represent that we can be all things all the time, all at once. And you know, even to the LGBTQ plus community just itself, I love that we represent so many different people that we can all say that we're a part of this beautiful community and all have such different experiences and all you know have such different expressions and we look so differently and our families look so differently. I think that's the beautiful part and it reminds me so much of a sports team. Like you know, a sports team, we all play for the same team and we all look so different, we all believe and think so differently, but like we still are a unit, we still are like a family, we still are like one thing. I think that is that beauty and that diversity is the richness of our society. And when we fight so hard against it, when we fight so hard to like make everything so the same or to define something so singularly, we fight against what it means to be human. We fight against the nature of literally what it means to be in communion with each other, to be in society with each other, to love each other and support each other. It's not the goal of being a human being is not to make everything the same. The goal is to embrace all of the differences and to love all the differences and support it. And if we were all the same, we also wouldn't grow. Like I learned so much from people who have different experiences in different walks of life and different points of view, as long as we're all being respectful of each other and able to, like I said, still love each other, still support each other. Like difference is the part where we grow. That
Yeah.
is the part where we become better. So I mean, I see the beauty in intersectionality. I also don't adhere to the oppressed becoming an oppressor. Like I think that I do always it does always kind of like blow my mind when that happens. But I understand like you do perpetuate a cycle of things that have been done to you. It is kind of easier sometimes for people when they feel as though they're constantly being put down, when they find someone that they feel like they can do that too. It's like, okay, well, at least I'm a step above you, or at least I feel better because now I've pushed you down and it makes me feel higher. But like that's not the goal here.
Yeah.
We are all fighting against the same thing, whether it's racism, homophobia, sexism, all of the things. It is the idea that you can treat someone less than just because of the way that they're born and who they are. Like that is what we're all fighting against. And there are times when certain of us are under more attack than other people. We talk about Black Lives Matter. We talk about the legislation against trans youth right now. Like there are times when, yes, certain battles take precedent because of what's happening.
Yes.
But we are still all fighting the same idea, and we all need to be there for each other and support each other.
Yeah. And I love that you brought like the idea of team out, because something that I think a lot of people who have a little bit more closed minds and are more set in their beliefs is I've seen a lot of them not having the opportunity to kind of be placed in a spot where their beliefs and things do not align with the new crowd of people. And you talked in your book about several moves between schools, between states. And then when I look back at my own life, I've moved so many times where I didn't have the opportunity to say the way I see the world is the way the world is.
Mm.
I had constantly have to learn, okay, I'm in a new place. How do they do things here?
Yeah.
And I love how college does that, because we're all coming from different high schools and different parts of the world. And then sports, you all are coming from different places as well, and then have to function as a team. And I had someone come on who is part of the military, and you
Yeah.
hear that same mentality of, these are my brothers, this is my team, these are the people who are going to have my back. The silly things that divide us in those moments have to be disregarded and looked at more as, this person is going to have my back when I need them to have my back. And I think in a lot of instances, we aren't put in situations to feel that way. And we settle on the silly things of, this person looks like me, or this person plays the same things that I do in life. And we put ourselves in that category because naturally our human mind is set to survive. And unfortunately, survival when you're in fear state is look for something that's similar.
Mm.
I always tell people one of the things that I love most about my own life is, if you look at my friends, like all of them in one room, you wouldn't be able to categorize them by physical anything
Mm.
appearances. It would be something you'd have to realize it's a mindset. The people I surround myself with are people who want growth, who want connection, who want to expand and connect and understand the world around them. And unfortunately, that's not something, or maybe it's fortunate, that's not something that you can put a physical trait on.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to kind of be taught that. And I think that that's where maybe school systems and social norms are not in place currently to celebrate the facts that it's our differences that makes the country, the world
Yeah.
strong. If we were all the same, like you were saying, we wouldn't be able to overcome obstacles and problems, because we would have all been one mind. And if that one way of doing things
Didn't
doesn't
work.
fix, we would be really stuck.
Extinct. Yeah, and I think, I mean, I do think like the survival instinct part of it. I do think that the human survival instinct isn't necessarily to find something similar. I think it is to find something familiar,
Yeah.
and I do believe that unfortunately we are brought up in a society where people are so stuck in their own cacophonies of their own culture and their own selves that the familiar and the similar have become to look so much of the same.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that is also like a fatal flaw of of what we've done to ourselves. Like I do also think that is something that we can change as a society. Sport and is just the easiest way that it happened for me.
Yeah.
And you bring up the military, which is great because in sport, like that's literally also what they teach us in football. Like most of the rhetoric and the like comparison and the metaphor that we get in sport and in football is like military comparison, which is kind of scary when you're a kid because it's all about like going to games is like going to war, and it's like not that serious. But they're like trying to teach us a mentality, like it is this like break you down to build you back up as this unit that has each other's back essentially. And I do think that that idea, like I said, not to that extreme, but that idea is something that should be taught in just community. Like there was a time where your community was really entrusted to even like help raise your family in a sense. Like
Yeah.
there was a time where everyone on my street for like especially the generation before me like helped to raise my parents, like knew where my mother was and knew where my dad was, and like had some type of disciplinary authority, not like physically, but like had some type of like, hey, where are you going? What are you doing? Make sure you're doing the right things. We're looking out for you. Like we feel in some way responsible for your growth and development as a human being. Like we are a team in another sense. And we're in a society now where things feel at times so disjointed, which is funny because we have more technology to feel more connected than ever. But we don't use that always so responsibly. But yeah, it's the world is so big and we have so much more access to it,
Yeah.
and yet we are centralizing fear. We are centralizing um, uh, the divide. We are centralizing all of these things that to keep us afraid of each other, and it doesn't make sense to me because I'm like, at the end of the day, we all share this planet together. We all need each other to survive. Let's be completely honest. And the things that we're really fighting over are kind of like stupid. Most of it, like most of it's really dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like most of it's really dumb. In my humble opinion, like outside of the consequences are real. The ramifications are real. The things that are happening to people are real. The reasonings are stupid. That's how I feel.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely an emotional driven space where if we never get past the surface level of the context of conversations being had or arguments, fights, wars, you start to see people as other or different than you. But a lot of times when you go down past that level, you see that people are fighting for their perceived safety, their perceived happiness, their perceived goals. And if we could get to a deeper level of conversation, we would probably see more similarities than differences because there's just the human basic needs that people are fighting for. And if we could get to those types of conversations, which a lot of people can, but the loud banter that you hear online, because the loudest people are the ones we usually see, uh, those are the ones that we're just like, it seems like we're going into the darker part of the like century. It seems
Hmm.
like there's we're moving to a place of no return, but you
Yeah.
can find people, and I love that for you. When you got the opportunity to be in the spotlight, you brought a lot of really important things to the conversation, and I think that that's your job when it becomes, hey, people are looking, what can I bring for the spotlight? And I looked at it the same. I was like, okay, people are listening to what I'm saying. I need to make sure that what I'm saying aligns with what I hope to bring into this world. And I love that not only did you put out the book, you also decided to make a journal for people to navigate their own mental health, which I think in general, when it comes to men, mental health is kind of way down on the list of things that need to be dealt with. There's so many different things that they hold tight to,
Hmm.
and mental health seems to be a place where when you start having those conversations, it's a lot harder for men to have it, even within the LGBT community, where we're kind of labeled as more sensitive or more open or more feminine to things. There is still that social construct of mental health should not be talked about. You need to just man up. And that falls into everyone, not just
Yeah.
straight men. And I think it's important that you decided to tackle that challenge and bring that to the stage with everything else that you're tackling.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, it is to me. I mean, we even talk about mental health, like you said, amongst all men. There is a mental health crisis for all men, regardless of their sexuality or how they identify. Even being a queer man myself, like we still all grew up with the same social constructs. We still all grew up in the same heteronormative world. For some of us, it might have been a little more forced or traumatic because of who we are, but we still all got the same lessons. So we were affected in very similar ways. Mental health is something that's very important to me. When we talk about advocacy and we talk about having these conversations, I do believe if your happiness is hinged on someone else, like we talk about the loud voices online, when you are so upset because I exist, and you feel like I am somehow, my existing is somehow affecting your own happiness, your own wellness, I do also put that in the category of mental health. Like your happiness should not be contingent on me existing, me having rights, me loving who I love. Your happiness should be contingent on you in your life, and you should probably talk to someone about that. That's a very and I it sounds like I'm not being shady. Like that is a very serious thing. There are people in this world that are hurting, and instead of admitting that, and instead of seeking healing and seeking help, they are lashing out, especially men, because we aren't taught to admit that we're hurting. We aren't taught to take a second and to cry and to be vulnerable, and especially not to share that information with someone else is to like give someone the kryptonite to your whole existence. So the journal felt like a safe place for men also to start, because it is something that at this point is like a self-contained thing. It's not something maybe as scary or as daunting as like going to see a therapist. It's not something that takes as much as like going to see a psychiatrist and maybe like starting medication. But if that is are things you need, hopefully a journal can also help you start to make those decisions. This is just a tool for mental wellness, just as like a dumbbell or a treadmill is a tool to physical wellness. This is not in any case a cure or a solution. This is just one step. It's something that also has helped me in my journey. The journal is the Huddle Men's Journal, Baron Fig. You can get it online. You can go to my profile and get it anywhere. But it is a guided journal. There are like over 100 something prompts. So if you've never journaled before, please do not be afraid of this. It's super easy. Anyone can do it. Also, I want to make something very specific. It is a men's quote unquote journal, but anyone can use it. We just find that when you put men on things, men are more inclined to do it.
Yeah.
We want to encourage men to use it, but literally anyone can use it. It is just a journal. But it helps you track activity, it helps you track sleep, it helps you track your general mood, and asks you, like I said, thought provoking questions, things that are also career based. A lot of men journal without even knowing they journal. If you track your workouts and you track what you eat and your nutrition and you do those type of things, your goals, you're already journaling. You're just not putting any of the kind of like emotional or thought provoking maybe context in it yet. You can also use this. So it just seemed like a good place to start. And like I said, journaling is something that I do in my own life. It's something that's really helped me on my journey of coming out, and also just my journey of like sustaining healthy relationships with myself. The ultimate goal is so that you can better understand your own emotions, what you're going through internally with yourself, so that you can communicate it with those in your life. That is a part I'm also still working on. It's not perfect. The theory will also be perfect, will always be perfect. The practice will always take work. But that is the hope, that you can do this, that you can better understand your own thought process, what you're going through in your own life, how you're feeling in those moments, what's kind of hindering you, what's hurting you, the obstacles you're facing, so that you can hopefully communicate with the loved ones around you and get the help that you need if you need further help and assistance.
Yeah. And I love what you did with the journal, because there have been a lot of journals that I've picked up and they will have like prompts, but it's usually repetitive prompts the whole time. So like you could rip out one page and
And do it
just do it do it over and over. Whereas yours, almost every page you're getting something new to kind
Oh
of
yeah.
prompt a new thought and something to write, which I think is very helpful for people who are on the starting point of the journey of connecting their thoughts to paper, because it is not always easy, especially when you're doing it for the first time. Like my partner, he was a baseball player, so he had the journey of going through sports as well. And I was more of the theater, show choir.
Nice.
Role models were always very connected to women. I was very close to my grandfather, but that was really the only male figure. And he was also very in touch with explaining and talking about emotions. So for me, that was something that came a little bit more naturally. Whereas now, where I'm dating someone where he went through the journey of masculinity, not really thinking it was cool to talk about your feelings. And so I was going through connecting with him and having to learn that he has to start at a very different level than I'm currently at. And I
Mm,
have to be willing to hold space for that and not be too pushy. I can definitely, being a life coach and someone who does this daily, I'm sure that he's progressed a lot faster, but I've also been reminded multiple times when I'm working with coaches and therapists that I need to be careful of not being too pushy,
mm,
because that is also a toxic way of helping someone connect in that way.
yeah.
And so there have been several times where him and I have had conversations where he's grateful for me creating that space for him, but there's definitely times where I've created a lot of friction in our relationship by
Mm.
pushing a little too hard. So it's definitely a journey that you have to go on. And I want to kind of pass that over to you as
Oh
like
yeah.
with your relationship and the journey you've been on with that and how you kind of navigate.
Yeah, definitely. Partnership is like a whole nother dynamic into the conversation. Uh, for me, I have always been um, very much like an internal person in terms of the both, like with my emotions, with my thought processes. When I'm going through good times, when I'm going through bad times, I'm just like a very self-contained person. I always kind of keep it very stoic. Oh, my partner's in here. He'll bring me in for
I was
that
gonna
one.
say,
No, you're not
Corey's
coming
like,
in.
bring me on.
So I always appear very even keel, I believe, and he can chime in if I'm lying or being incorrect. Um, so I always appear very even keel. I'm working on trying to let my partner specifically know when I'm not feeling 100%, when something's on my mind, when something's affecting me in a certain type of way. I've learned that that also doesn't mean necessarily I'm comfortable like talking about that topic. A lot of the times I'm not, I just want to kind of like mention it and then like just not talk about it again. Like I'm just like, okay, I'm letting you know, just so you know it's like not anything with us, or like you're not making something up or like going crazy, and like this is actually something happening with me. But it's something like I'm working through. Like I'm very much a person where like I work through a lot of my own things.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's like growing up a single child most of my life. I don't know if that's like a toxic masculinity
yeah,
thing. I do feel like if I get to a point where I need help, I can ask, so it doesn't feel super toxic to me. In a partnership, though, it does create a little bit of like conflict because your partner wants to love you, like your partner wants to support you. For a lot of partners, that's a partnership. Like it feels like, hey, if you're feeling down, let me help you not feel down. For me, the part of partnership is just allowing me to have that space, allowing me to be like, okay, you told me, I appreciate that. You will also let me know if you need anything from me, and I'm just going to give you the space to like work it out. Like I trust you to kind of like handle your own things. So it's difficult because I also have to remember like to let people know just what's going on with me.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, so that's how it shows up for me in relationships, and it's been like that with family too. That's why I'm like, it's not even a relationship thing. Like my friends, that was like a joke with my friends. Like, I'm there, I'm always having a good time, and then like if I go dark for 3 days, and then I pop back up, they're like, okay, what happened? Like what went down? Like, how are you okay now? Like, what's going on? So that's just like always been how I've been. But now with a partner, especially with living together, you got to let someone know, like, hey, it's going kind of rough. I'm anxious about this. This kind of is on my mind. I'm good. I'm okay. I'm just kind of like working through it. there's nothing I need, or this is kind of what I need, or I'd like some space or some time. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how it's going.
So when it comes to being someone who is more in the spotlight, and your partner is also very known in
Mhm.
different areas as well, different than yours, but still known. When it comes to the narratives that when people are telling your story, how do you navigate that? Because I feel even just the amount of tension that I've had online, there are people who want to know more. And of course, when you've got stories being written, of course, with your book, you have a little bit more control. And then, of course, you are talking about doing a series where your life is a little bit more revealed. But we all know TV series and shows,
Yeah,
they want to push a certain message forward, which may not be the most honest message or may not give enough space for the full picture to be understood. How do you
definitely.
kind of navigate that? Because that's a whole nother weight put on not just your relationship with your partner, but everyone else who's involved in that as well.
Definitely. I would say first and foremost, make sure that the relationships and things you have in real life are good. Like if you're not in a good place with your partner or with your family member, with the people, that will be going on this journey with you and whose stories will be told or co-opted in any way, or whose likeness or faces will be used or who will be talked about, like just make sure those people are good. Make sure you're constantly like checking in and y'all are on the same page, and that the stories, if they aren't just your stories, are, being shared in ways that make you all feel good. If they're not being shared in ways that make you all feel good, or if y'all have unresolved issues, hopefully those issues are being resolved or can be resolved, or, that's just a conversation that you're willing to have. Especially in the book, there were things that, I was going to talk about rough times with my family. That was part of my story. There were relationships in there where those relationships are still not great. And
Yeah.
I was going to talk about them honestly and openly. I try very hard not to villainize anyone in my book because I do not feel like there are any villains in my life. I do believe that my book is a recollection of my memories and my feelings and my emotions at that time. And everyone has their own story. Everyone has their own side. If you want to tell your side, write a book. And there were
Yeah.
people where, I talked about our rough times and we're good now. And I'm like, if me talking about our rough times in an honest and open way ruins or kind of like disrupts all of the work we've done since then to be in a good space, then I guess we're not in as good a space as I thought we were. So that's kind of how I took it with the book. So just like, hey, I'm be honest, I'm be open. We're good now. I think that's what's important. If you feel differently, let me know. And so far, I'm good with everyone. we're all good. Like everyone's moving forward. With my relationship, I think that's more of like the constant struggle, just because like a relationship, we're both humans. Like there's days when we're great, and there's days when we're like, not as great as other days. And there's times where we might get in a little argument, and then someone's posting a photo of us randomly, and they're like couple goals, and you might not feel that day like the biggest couple goals.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, people online are people online. I'm like, if anything online is affecting your real life, you know what the beauty of it is? You can always get off. You can always turn something off. You can always log something out. You can always say, like, okay, maybe Instagram isn't for me today, and just live a real life. The public and the paparazzi with everything in the relationship in the beginning was kind of terrible. Even the good stuff was it was just pressure in a new relationship. Relationships aren't meant to be publicly like surveyed, publicly analyzed for positive or for negative. Like it's just not a natural thing.
Yeah.
So when you put your relationship through unnatural circumstances, you get unnatural results. You get unnatural tension. You get unnatural, even kind of heightened romance, like a romance effect. I think that's what happens with like a lot of these reality TV shows, like The Bachelor, and people like get engaged on TV, and like there's this heightened sense of romance. Some people get offline and they make it work, and they get off TV and they make it work. But like that is not a natural setting. It's not a natural euphoria that happens. Doesn't mean it's not real. It's just not natural. The show. So the choice that I made for the show was very much that this is something based off of my book. This is not something directly pinpointed to my life. Like the character will not have my name. No one in this thing will have any names of anyone in my real life. So I could give myself freedom to also tell stories that I wanted to tell. There are things that happen in my life that have real life ramifications that I want to show in this that I want to show in this show. That's funny. That I want to show on screen, maybe in a different way. You know, I'm like, maybe what if this happened this way? Like, I want to give myself that creative liberty, especially now that I'm becoming more of a storyteller in a creative way. And I feel like that would give me more of the freedom. You know, I would hate to name like a character, make a character based completely from my mom and give my mom's name and then like make her do something crazy. That's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel good to me. So just creating, you know, those kind of boundaries, those kind of settings for yourself. But those are my big things. Like, get offline if offline is crazy. Make sure the people in your real life and your circle and your relationships are good, regardless of what's happening outside of that. And when you can take creative freedoms and creative boundaries to distance yourself from the narrative, do that.
Yeah. I definitely think that it's so important to build strong relationships with people, especially when we know when a spotlight goes on you, that also means that people who are not supportive are looking as well. And that can also be a really rough patch. Being someone who was putting myself out there, knew that that would come. I knew that
Yeah.
eventually the wrong
Yeah.
side of the internet would see something of me. And that would come to a point where I would have to deal with the consequences
Mm,
of that. But
that's awful.
a lot of other people in my life were also put in line of fire,
Mm,
which I think that hurt me more than
mm,
anything anyone can say about me, because at this point I've developed the mindset of hurt people are saying that.
yeah.
Because anytime I've ever said anything hateful has been out of a place of my own hurt. And I feel like that was something I needed to heal. So when people throw things like that at me, I'm just like, you're healing. You need healing. I pray for your healing. I hope it comes to you. I hope that you
Oh, you're
find a
sweet.
journal to help you through that.
You're
Maybe a
sweet.
therapist, but I don't take it as personally. But when
No.
I see something thrown out about my relationship or my
Yeah.
friends, or they get unwanted attention because of me,
Mm.
that impacts me a little bit differently. But how did you navigate maybe the darker side of the spotlight being shown on you and having people's judgments like out there, because those people are usually the loudest ones
Oh my
with platforms to
gosh.
say something?
Yeah, I think it's mine is very similar to yours as well. I was used to a level of social criticism. Being in a place of athletics, in a place of sport, you're used to criticism. Like, my my body and my being was also my business up until that point. So like, me as a person was also looked as like a business and a product. So I was constantly looked at like being critiqued. I was used to, you know, people saying like I wasn't tall enough, fast enough, strong enough, I didn't get the job done, you know, I had bad games, I wasn't, you know, I was constantly kind of used to being criticized in that way publicly, um, for little to no reason a lot of the time, or just randomly. You know, like, even if I didn't have a game, you could get online and people could just randomly feel like going in on Dallas Cowboy, RK Russell, just one day. Like, you know, it's just, it was what sports is a lot of the time. It's part that makes it sometimes great and sometimes awful. It's just like you are up for public discussion at all times. So I had kind of that level of familiarity with it. I think then, being black in America, I've dealt with racism my whole life, so I already kind of had, for better or for worse, a tougher skin when it came to like racism, hate, bigotry, prejudice, all of these things, stereotype. So I was kind of already used to those things. Um, so yeah, I felt like I had a decent foundation. I already had lived with the mantra that if people don't know you personally, you don't take what they say personally. I'm just like, you have an egg on Twitter and you're talking about me. Like, I don't even know. You could be a bot. You could be a 12-year-old. Like, I don't know you. Like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
I can't take what you're saying to heart. I don't even know if you have a heart. You could literally be a machine. Like, I just don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but you know, with the relationship, it's different because I think you're inherently more protective of your relationship, and when you see things affecting your partner, that affects you. Like, not even what they're saying about my partner, because I also know that's not true. Because I'm like, y'all don't know him, or you don't know my family, or you don't know my friends. You're just saying craziness. But when you see their light feel dimmed, or you see them take that on, you know, that hurts you. Seeing your partner also deal with like we got like a lot of weird racism like about being an interracial couple, which was super strange. Not strange because I knew it existed, but just like we got more of that than the homophobia. So that
Yeah.
was weird. That was super strange because it's coming because that was coming from both sides. That was coming from also like straight people and queer people. So that was, I think, the disheartening part. It's like I felt like I was stepping into a community, and then I was also getting like this racist, this like racist rhetoric from that community I was stepping into. So that was trash. But all in all, comments are comments. Critique and criticism and all of these things have nothing to do with my life and nothing to do with our lives. I live such a blessed and fortunate life. My coming out was literally like national news. I know people who come out and they lose their families, they lose their jobs, their lives are put in jeopardy. Like my coming out was like a celebrated thing on TV. It was like so like I was in such a place of gratitude that everything else beyond that, I was just like, this is so minuscule. Like this is, I'm focused on making everyone's coming out feel more like that celebration because there's a little kid right now who's deathly afraid of just being who they are, who's contemplating whether existing or coming out is like it's between one or the other. Like I'm more focused on that than what you have to say about like my relationship. That's so stupid. I'm more focused on those lives out there. Um, so that's kind of like how I viewed it. And like I said, I can always just turn my phone off. I filter a lot of words. Like you can't type certain things. You can't message me unless I follow you. Like I'm not chasing a following count. I'm not going to engage with people because I need you to like my post. Like that's just not my game. That's not the game I'm playing. I'm playing a game of like trying to help people that want to be helped, trying to talk to those that want to be talked to advocate for those that need to be advocated for, to give voice to those who feel voiceless. Like I'm playing a different game.
Yeah.
And being on social media helps sometimes. Connecting with people like you and having these conversations helps sometimes. And sometimes being offline is what helps the most. And people like can't fathom. They're like they don't understand.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not on TikTok. They're like, why not? It would be the best thing for you. I'm like, it might be the best thing for someone else. I don't think it'd be the best thing for me.
Yeah. And I love that you choose what you focus on because a lot of times I think there's a lot of people who waste their energy trying to convince the people who are unconvincible. You may, I always tell people, like, to someone, I'm just a random gay person yabbing my mouth and I will never have any value to them. So no
Yeah.
matter how many words come out of my mouth, no matter how many convincing stories I use, they will never hear it. So it's energy wasted when I can be speaking to someone who is open and willing to be educated further. And it's so much better to put your energy into that, put your energy
Yeah.
into your loved ones, put your energy into the younger version of you that needs to hear you say
Mm.
it's going to be okay. And I think that you do a phenomenal job at that. I know that we're getting close to the end of the interview. So I want to just open it up to you to share anything that you would like to share that you believe would be helpful to people who may be able to relate to your story, as well as how we around the world can connect and support you to keep you and your story and your message spreading as far as it can.
Oh my gosh, that's so kind. That's so sweet. I'm gonna start with the kind of like least important to most important things. You connect with me online here on Instagram, rkrelentless. I have a website that keeps everyone updated on what I'm doing, rkrelentless.com. I am on Threads, which you can also follow through here, rkrelentless, and that's about it because I'm not really on Twitter anymore because that's dead. So you can find me, like I said, my website, rkrelentless, or on Instagram Threads, rkrelentless. In terms of message that I want to give, I want people to vote. Like that is super. I love your shirt. I love what you have on. It's super important. We sit here and we talk about making a change. We talk about advocating. We talk about our community and in the multiple communities that feel under attack. The anti-trans legislation, the anti-queer legislation, the rights being taken away from women to choose what they do with their own bodies. All these things. We need to vote. We need to vote in national elections. We need to vote in local elections. We need to use that power, even if it feels frivolous, even if it feels like you're throwing just a vote into the void. It's not. It is a power. It is your voice. It is something, and we need to do everything that we can. So please vote. Please register to vote. It's super important. What else? And also, like, focus on your community. Like, there's times where it's great to have impact. Sometimes the greatest impact that you can have is just in the lives that you see and touch every day. I love going and speaking to universities. I love getting online and talking to a bunch of people. The things that I love the most also is just like hanging out with my nephews and literally seeing me say one thing to them and their whole world lighting up. You do not have to change a million lives to be a significance or to be a change maker. You just have to go out there and change one. So please, please, please do not make it seem like what you're doing does not matter in any way, shape, or form. All change matters. All of our lives matter. All the love matters. Please, please, please go and do what you can. And vote. Vote, vote, vote.
Yeah.
Boom.
And I saw one question before we jump off of here. Someone asked about if there've been any struggles when it comes to being part of the LGBT community and also being within the world of the NFL. If you wanted to touch on that real quick, so that that could be answered, since someone was curious.
Yes. Oh my God. Sorry, I didn't even see. There's like all these comments here. The sports world. Yes. So in sports, I would say yes and no. So the sports world, being bisexual in the NFL in male sports has always been challenging. I think it continues to be challenging. Unfortunately, we lost a great friend and colleague of mine actually the other day, Billy Bean, who was the senior VP of diversity and inclusion in the MLB. He was one of the first players to come out in the MLB after a 10-year career. Just a great change maker, a great friend, someone I would have the pleasure of being on panels with, um, and just knowing he lost his battle to cancer yesterday. Well, we were informed about it yesterday. So just losing icons like that really also brings this message home for me today, is that we've come so far in sports, and especially in male sports, but there's so much further to go. The NFL specifically, I can talk about what they're doing. They are creating more initiatives to breed inclusion. The conversation has gone from we're waiting for an NFL player to come out to being more proactive. They understand that they have fans that are LGBTQ. They understand that they have staff and executives and coaches and people that are LGBTQ. And news alert, even if your players aren't out, you still have players that are LGBTQ plus. So
Yeah.
they are taking more initiatives. They have a partnership with GLAAD that is spanning over multiple years now. They do a Pride Initiative weekend for Super Bowl. They have a bunch of cool stuff coming up, not just internally and privately, but externally on socials, in advertisement, in marketing, in workshops and education. So a lot of great stuff coming. Is it enough? No, but it is a start, and we will keep pushing. For encouragement in the sports world, I always, always, always suggest that any male sports league, professional to amateur, if you feel lost in what to do in your advocacy for the community, look at your female sports counterparts. The female sports leagues do a great job of empowering their players, creating diverse leagues. You can blame it on the fact they have more out players. I don't care. Do what they're doing. Empower your players, make your players feel included, be radical when it comes to inclusion and diversity, be radical when it comes to inviting different people to the table as decision makers at the forefront of decision, not just as tokens and as faces for programs during Pride Month or National Coming Out Day. So male sports, we're working on it. The players in the league are also becoming more inclusive as well, thanks to new generations coming up. The kids are great. So it's happening. We're getting there.
Awesome. Once again, thank you so much for jumping on here and doing this. I think you're doing amazing work, and I fully support everything that you're doing. And so glad that we've got someone like you out there in the world using your platform to spread awareness as well as diversity and inclusion. So keep up the great work, and yeah, I will talk
Yeah,
to you
thank
soon.
you. Yes, thank you for having me. I appreciate it so much.
Awesome.
You have a good one.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody. Y'all
Bye.
be good.